A shock hung in the Hungarian air. Charles Leclerc had grabbed Ferrari's first pole position of the season, surprising everyone. He led the race, looked strong, decisive, ready to end their wait for victory. Then, everything crashed. Ferrari's team principal, Vasseur, said the final stint was a disaster, very difficult to drive, that balance was not there, and honestly, we don't know exactly what's happened so far. How could a car that seemed perfect on the grid turn into something undriveable? In the opening laps, Charles controlled the race. He kept McLaren's Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris behind him through the first stint. But after the second pit stop on lap 40, when Ferrari put on a fresh set of hard tyres, something broke inside the car. Data from Ferrari later confirmed a problem developed on Charles's chassis, which cost him 2 seconds per lap. Charles later said, "I was wrong," about the anger he voiced on the radio, because after the race, he discovered it was actually an issue coming from the chassis, and nothing that we could have done differently. He realized it wasn't a bad pit stop or front wing, but something nobody saw in advance. He began to feel the issue around lap 40, and it got worse lap after lap. Towards the end, we were 2 seconds off the pace, and the car was just undriveable. Vasseur added, "It's true that the situation was quite strange. We were under control the first 40 laps. Second stint was a bit more difficult, but it was still manageable. And last stint was a disaster." He admitted Ferrari don't know exactly what's happened so far, and insisted they must investigate whether something broke in the chassis. What could have triggered such a collapse? One strong theory is plank wear, that wooden strip under the car that must stay a little above the track. If Ferrari let the car run too low to gain downforce, it risks legal trouble. George Russell suggested Ferrari had to raise tyre pressure and reduce engine power to protect the plank, which ended up killing Leclerc's pace. Ferrari had already disqualified Lewis Hamilton earlier this season in China for excessive plank wear, so the team was wary. Engine mode was also trimmed, less top speed to lower stress, and tyre pressure was up, so the car ride height increased. But those moves hurt grip and changed how the car balanced. Analysts said those decisions may have compromised grip and stability, contributing to the drastic drop in performance. From the radio, it sounded clear. Charles told the team, "We've lost all competitiveness. You just have to listen to me. I would have found a different way of managing those issues. Now it's just undriveable. Undriveable." That was probably around the time when the lap time dive began. Vasseur explained those angry messages were actually about ERS energy deployment earlier, not the chassis issue itself. In the final laps, Leclerc was overtaken by both McLaren's and then Mercedes's George Russell. He pushed hard, but could only hold on to fourth. A 5-second penalty for a risky defense against Russell didn't help. In the end, he finished 21 seconds off the leaders, dead last of the front-running group. Once again, pole didn't become win. "This was an issue. It shouldn't ever happen again, but I'm still very disappointed," he said. Lewis Hamilton's weekend was even worse. He started and finished in 12th, never gaining a position. He crashed out in Q2 and confessed, "Useless," saying that Ferrari might need to find another driver. When you have a feeling, you have a feeling. There's a lot going on in the background that is not great. Brundle called his struggles painful to observe this great champion in so much strife. Ferrari now faces a performance crisis test over the summer break. Vasseur's contract was extended recently, but now his job is to lead a deep, technical investigation back at Maranello. Engineers have already rushed back to study the SF-25 and what might have broken or misbehaved on the chassis, asking, is this a one-off or a deeper design flaw? The team will hold an investigation to get to the bottom of what caused his loss of pace. And so comes the test. Can Ferrari solve it before the Dutch GP at the end of August? Will Leclerc and Hamilton trust the car again? Is the SF-25 fundamentally flawed, or was Hungary just a cruel anomaly? The second half of the season begins with a cloud of questions, none of which have answers yet, but all of which Ferrari must confront. But if the Hungarian Grand Prix was a disaster, then what followed was Ferrari's real emergency drill, a crisis test, both literal and symbolic. As other teams packed up and left Budapest, Ferrari stayed behind. Leclerc was back in the cockpit just 2 days later for a secretive 2-day tyre test with Pirelli. Officially, the test was about 2,026 tyres. Unofficially, it was a desperate search for answers. The test was supposed to be a calm, technical session. But behind the garage doors, the atmosphere was tense. Engineers weren't just collecting data on rubber compounds. They were quietly measuring chassis flex, inspecting ride height tolerances, and watching for the faintest clue of what went wrong on Sunday. Every vibration, every telemetry spike was a potential lead in their investigation. It's clear why they were desperate. The SF-25 is fast when it's low, skimming the track like a bullet. That design works perfectly in the wind tunnel. But in the real world, the plank wears too fast. If they raise the ride height to protect it, the car becomes unstable. If they keep it low, they risk disqualification. It's a no-win situation. And it's not new. Back in March, during the Chinese GP, Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari was disqualified for exactly this reason. The plank was too worn. In Spain, they pumped the tyres up like balloons to keep the car from scraping. But that ruined grip, and both drivers complained the car was undriveable. Then it happened again in Hungary. Months have passed, and the same problem keeps resurfacing like a ghost Ferrari can't bury. Fred Vasseur has called for calm, but the numbers don't lie. Leclerc's lap times fell off a cliff after lap 40. By the final stint, he was losing 2 seconds per lap. That's not tyre wear. That's not strategy. That's a broken car. And if it's the chassis, that's a nightmare. Even the changes Ferrari brought to Hungary didn't work. A new floor, a revised rear suspension, parts meant to improve braking stability and reduce plank wear. The suspension change helped a little, but the plank problem didn't go away. In fact, the team had to turn down engine power and raise pressures just to keep the car legal. Charles wasn't racing anymore. He was surviving. Some fans wondered, why not just back off, play safe, and bank the points? But that's not Ferrari's goal anymore. They're tired of being second best. McLaren and Red Bull have both won this year. Even Mercedes got a victory. Ferrari, still zero. That pressure is rising, inside the team, in the media, and in the paddock. And then there's Lewis Hamilton. What started as an exciting new chapter has turned into a nightmare. Hungary was, by his own words, one of the worst weekends of his career. He was knocked out in the second quarter. He finished 12th. In the post-race interview, he didn't hide his feelings. Useless, he called himself. And more than that, he hinted that things inside the team were not great. Martin Brundle, watching from the Sky Sports commentary box, said it best. It's painful to observe this great champion in so much strife. After the race, Hamilton sat in the car alone for minutes. He skipped the stewards' meeting about an incident with Verstappen. He just checked out. But behind the sadness, there's something more dangerous. Doubt. If Hamilton starts doubting Ferrari, if he starts doubting himself, how long can this partnership last? Brundle wondered aloud if Lewis could really endure 2 more seasons at Ferrari like this. Back in Maranello, the focus is already shifting to 2026. Engineers are hard at work on the next generation car. But what about now? What about the second half of 2025? Can the SF-25 be saved? Or will Ferrari quietly surrender and wait for a fresh start? They don't have the luxury of time. Fans are watching, sponsors are watching, and their own drivers are reaching breaking points. Charles Leclerc, loyal as ever, said, "We must make sure this never happens again." But how? As summer break begins, Ferrari has no wins, 2 frustrated drivers, and 1 car that seems afraid of its own potential. What happens next is anyone's guess. Will the break bring answers or more questions? One thing is certain. This is no longer just about one bad race. This is a full-blown identity crisis. So we ask you, can Ferrari turn this ship around? Or are we watching the early signs of another season unraveling, one plank scrape at a time? Let us know in the comments. And stay tuned, because the summer break might be quiet on track, but the storm in Maranello is only just beginning.